It was never meant to turn into a fight. This was supposed to be routine, controlled, precise. A rescue, one pilot, ejected, wounded, alone, drifting somewhere between survival and silence, deep inside airspace no one admits they control, but everyone is watching. Time was collapsing. Every second mattered. Then, something shifted, not on the ground, not in command. In the sky, a signal cut through the silence, AEGIS-NET, cold, immediate, unforgiving, not a warning. A claim. 2 Aurelian Union Valkyrie class rescue birds tore across the horizon, blades slicing through thin air, engines pushing beyond safe limits. They weren't flying into danger. They were flying into something that was already waiting, watching, calculating. And then, the strike came. Fast enough to shock, controlled enough to confuse. Impact, but not destruction. No fireball, no collapse, just a violent shudder through the frame, metal screaming, systems flickering, pilots gripping controls as the aircraft held together by instinct and will. Because this wasn't meant to kill them. It was meant to reach them, to prove something far more dangerous than destruction. The missiles didn't finish the job, they brushed it. Deliberate. Measured. Like a blade dragged slowly across armor. Just enough to remind you it can cut deeper. And in that moment, buried between adrenaline and disbelief, a message became clear. Not spoken, not transmitted, felt. We can touch you anywhere. Even when you come to save your own. Everything froze for a fraction of a second. And in modern war, that fraction is everything. Because something invisible broke right there in the sky. Not the aircraft. Not the mission. The illusion that some zones are untouchable. That rescue is protected. That dominance guarantees safety. Gone now, every radar sweep felt uncertain. Every flight path exposed. Every pilot just a little more aware of something they couldn't see. Because the sky didn't just become dangerous. It became a sea alive, watching, testing, waiting. And for the first time in a long time, the ones who ruled it weren't sure it still belonged to them. This was never about jets tearing through the sky or missiles chasing heat signatures. That's just what people see. The real war was unfolding somewhere far more dangerous, inside perception itself. Because in modern conflict, control isn't measured by territory. It's measured by what the world believes is true. And right now, truth was beginning to fracture. At the center of it stood Commander Armin Vex, a man who didn't just command air power, he's embodied it. Every victory, every operation, every calculated strike had built his reputation into something untouchable. To him, dominance wasn't a theory. It was a fact. If you control the sky, you control the war. And for years he did. Because behind him stood something no enemy had ever truly challenged. AEGIS-NET, not just a defense system, a presence. A silent, all-seeing intelligence woven across satellites, radar grids, predictive algorithms, and autonomous response systems. It didn't just track threats. It anticipated them, calculated them, neutralized them before they even fully existed. Pilots trusted it. Command depended on it. The world feared it. They called it the eye that never blinks. And as long as AEGIS-NET watched the sky, nothing could truly threaten it. That was the belief. That was the foundation. That was the illusion. Because somewhere on the other side of the conflict, General Kale Draven wasn't trying to outgun it. He was studying it, watching how it reacted, how it prioritized, how it interpreted signals. Because Draven didn't fight wars the way others did. He didn't break systems with force. He broke them with uncertainty. He understood something most commanders never accept. The most powerful system in the world doesn't fail when it's destroyed. It fails the moment it begins to doubt its own decisions. And AEGIS-NET, for all its power, was built on one fragile foundation: confidence in its own accuracy. Draven didn't need to blind it. He didn't need to overwhelm it. He only needed to make it hesitate. Just once. Because hesitation leads to delay. Delay leads to miscalculation. And miscalculation, in a system that controls the sky, spreads faster than any missile ever could. But even that wasn't the most dangerous layer. because behind both sides, watching quietly, was something far less visible and far more unpredictable: the silent alliance. Not a nation, not a command, a network, operating in the shadows between information and influence. They didn't launch attacks. They shaped how those attacks were understood. They amplified certain signals, buried others, turned fragments into narratives, and narratives into reality. Because they knew the one truth both Vex and Draven were now circling. In this war, perception isn't a side effect, it's the battlefield. And while Vex trusted the sky, and Draven manipulated the cracks within it, the Silent Alliance was already rewriting what the world believed was happening above it. So when the first strike touched those rescue helicopters, it wasn't just a tactical moment. It was a psychological breach. Not in metal, not in machines, but in certainty itself. And once certainty begins to collapse, no system, no matter how advanced, remains untouchable for long. It should have been clean, fast, forgettable. That's how rescue missions are designed. Go in, extract, disappear. No headlines, no escalation, just precision under pressure. A Falcon 9 stealth pilot had gone down, systems failure, forced ejection, last signal barely holding together before fading into static. His location was pinned inside contested airspace that existed in a gray zone, denied publicly, watched obsessively. Coordinates locked. Window confirmed. 6 minutes. That was all they had before the entire zone shifted from monitored to weaponized. The Valkyries launched without hesitation. Engines roaring low, signatures minimized, flight path calculated to slip between known detection arcs. Every movement optimized, every second accounted for. From the outside, it looked flawless. From the inside, something felt wrong. Because the moment they crossed the invisible line, they weren't entering hostile airspace. They were entering US-prepared airspace. TAS-6. They just didn't know it yet. There were no radar pings, no satellite locks, no warning tones screaming in their ears. Just silence, too clean, too empty. Because what was watching them wasn't broadcasting. It wasn't tracking in the traditional sense. It was something else. A network built to observe without being seen. Passive shadow tracking systems. Signals without signals. Detection without emission. It didn't chase them. It waited for them to reveal themselves. Every rotor vibration, every micro heat signature, every deviation from natural airflow, quietly mapped, calculated, understood. By the time the pilots realized something was off, it was already too late. Then, a flash cut through the sky. No warning. No buildup, just sudden, violent clarity. The strike hit with surgical precision. Not center mass, not engines, not kill points. It struck where it would be felt the most. The aircraft jolted hard, systems flickering, alarms finally screaming awake as the illusion of safety shattered in an instant. But still, no follow-up, no second missile, no finishing blow. Just one hit, measured, intentional. Enough to destabilize, enough to expose, enough to send something far more dangerous than destruction, a message. Because this wasn't an attempt to eliminate the mission. It was an announcement. We are already inside your operation. We see you before you see us. SIF, and we decide what survives. For a brief moment, everything slowed. Pilots gripping controls tighter than training ever required. Eyes scanning systems that suddenly felt unreliable. Trust, once absolute, now cracking under pressure, because the most protected mission in modern warfare had just been touched. Not stopped, not destroyed. Touched. And that changed everything, because if a rescue operation, designed with maximum protection, executed with perfect timing, backed by the most advanced defense grid on the planet, could be reached like this, then nothing in the sky was sacred anymore. Not patrols, not strikes, not command aircraft, nothing. And from that moment forward, every mission carried a new weight. Not just risk, not just danger, but something far more destabilizing, shares exposure, because the rules had just been rewritten. And in this new version of the sky, even saving your own could get you targeted. Within hours, the battlefield expanded beyond the sky. No new missiles lit up radar. No shockwaves rolled across the horizon. Instead, something far more dangerous was deployed. This Operation Night Echo. It didn't arrive with noise. It arrived with information, and it spread faster than any weapon ever could. Screens flickered to life across the world. Military analysts, civilian feeds, private channels, encrypted networks, all carrying the same surge of fragments. Aurelian jets destroyed. Stealth aircraft intercepted. Air dominance shattered. A short clip surfaced. Thermal silhouettes breaking apart mid-air. Cockpit recordings, cut, distorted, looping just long enough to feel real. Radar overlays showing impossible trajectories. No full picture, no confirmed timeline, just pieces carefully selected, perfectly timed, and designed for one purpose. 2 hours overwhelmed certainty. Because when information moves faster than verification, truth doesn't disappear, it fractures, and in that fracture, perception takes control. Teus inside Aurelian Command, Commander Armin Vex didn't hesitate. His response was immediate, sharp, controlled. All aircraft accounted for. No confirmed losses. Enemy disinformation campaign detected. The words were precise, measured, technically flawless. But something was already slipping through the cracks. Because while Vex was speaking to facts, the world was reacting to us images. Pasa and images don't need confirmation. They only need belief. Across global networks, the effect was instant. Analysts began questioning data that had never been questioned before. Observers slowed down their conclusions. Even allied systems started double-checking what they once trusted without hesitation. Because the question was no longer, did this happen? It became, what if it did? And that single shift was enough. Behind the scenes, General Kale Draven watched it unfold with cold precision. No rush, no celebration, because this was never about proving victory. It was about planting something far more enduring. Vres uncertainty. Thus he understood the battlefield had already moved, away from airspace, away from physical strikes, into something deeper. The space between what is known and what is believed, and once that space is disrupted, even the most advanced systems begin to drift. AEGIS-NET was still operational, still tracking, still calculating, but now, every signal it processed existed inside a world where reality itself was being contested. Targets weren't just objects anymore. They were possibilities. And possibilities are harder to kill than missiles. Because in modern war, you don't need to destroy your enemy's power. You only need to make the world question whether it still exists. And the moment that question takes hold, the system doesn't collapse instantly. It hesitates, just long enough for everything else to begin unraveling. This is the moment the war reveals its true shape. Not in explosions, not in destruction, but in design. Because everything that happened before, the rescue strike, the flood of conflicting footage, the growing uncertainty, none of it was random. It was staged, layered, timed. And now, General Kale Draven lets the world see the pattern, not openly, not announced, but undeniable. This was never chaos. This was doctrine. This Red Veil Protocol SSA system not built to win quickly, but to erode belief until nothing feels stable. It began with provocation. A single, calculated strike on a rescue mission, chosen not for tactical value, but for emotional impact. Because rescue is sacred, it's protected. It's supposed to be beyond escalation. Breaking that boundary didn't just hit a target. It hit confidence, forced reactions, accelerated decisions, compressed timelines. Because when emotion enters the system, precision starts to slip. Then came distortion. Not silence, not secrecy, but overwhelming noise. Conflicting reports layered over each other. Half-truths injected into real data. Visual fragments released just believable enough to spread, but just unclear enough to resist verification. Truth didn't disappear. It multiplied into versions. And once there are multiple versions of reality, no one is fully certain which one they're operating inside. That's where control begins to fracture. And then, the final layer. The one that turns pressure into collapse overload. They appeared without warning. Small signatures, low altitude, Hard to track, harder to prioritize. Phantom swarm drones, not advanced enough to dominate, not expensive enough to matter individually, but together, relentless. They didn't move like traditional threats. They adapted, shifted patterns, changed timing, forced responses. One drone intercepted. 5 more altered their trajectory. 1 jet evaded. 3 new signals emerged from unexpected vectors. There was no clear front line, no stable engagement pattern, just constant evolving pressure. 2 AEGIS-NET remained active, still calculating, still scanning, still assigning threat values, but something inside it began to change. Not failure, not yet, something more subtle. It started to hesitate, because every new signal carried uncertainty, every detection required verification, every decision demanded a fraction more time, and in systems built on speed, that fraction becomes everything. Because Draven never needed to blind the system, he only needed to make it question itself, and once that question exists, it spreads. From algorithms to operators, from operators to pilots, from pilots to command, until the entire structure, still standing, no longer feels stable. The sky hadn't been taken, not yet, but something far more dangerous had begun. The belief that it could be. And once that belief takes hold, even the most advanced defense grid in the world stops reacting with certainty and starts reacting with doubt. The conflict no longer lives in the sky. It spills outward, into screens, into signals, into every place where certainty used to exist. Because once doubt escapes the battlefield, it doesn't stay contained. It spreads, fast. Across the world, analysts begin to fracture, not because they lack data, but because the data no longer agrees with itself. One feed shows impact, another shows evasion, one system flags loss, another confirms stability, and suddenly, no conclusion feels complete. This is escalation. This is illusion. This is controlled psychological warfare. Each statement carries weight. Each one sounds plausible, and none of them can fully disprove the others. 2 markets react before governments do. Small shifts at first, then sharper movements, energy spikes. Defense sectors surge. Uncertainty bleeds into every projection. Because markets don't wait for truth, they react to our risk. And right now, risk feels undefined. Alliances begin to tighten their communication. Not publicly, quietly, behind closed channels. Questions that were once unthinkable are now being asked in low voices. What is actually happening in that airspace? Are systems being penetrated? Or is this something else entirely? Because even allies don't trust incomplete information. Above it all, satellites continue their silent watch, orbiting, recording, observing. But even they return something unusual, not absence of data, but conflicting clarity, different angles, different readings, different interpretations of the same moment, as if reality itself is no longer aligned. And in the middle of this distortion, something unseen begins to move with precision, the silent alliance. No flags, no territory, no direct strikes. Just influence. They amplify certain clips, just enough to make them unavoidable. They bury others, before they can stabilize the narrative. They adjust timing so confusion overlaps with reaction, not creating chaos, shaping it, because chaos without direction fades, but guided confusion reshapes perception. The battlefield transforms, not into fire, not into destruction, but into reflection, a hall of mirrors where every angle looks real, and none of them can be trusted completely. Where truth isn't erased, it's multiplied until it becomes unusable. And slowly, a single question begins to rise above all others, not shouted, not declared, but felt across systems, across command, across the world itself. If the strongest air force can be questioned, then who is actually in control? No one answers, because for the first time, no one is completely sure anymore. Inside Aurelian command, the atmosphere shifts from control to pressure. Not visible, not loud, but tightening, minute by minute. Screens still glow with data. Systems still report operational integrity. Nothing has officially failed. And yet, everything feels unstable. At the center of it stands General Ryden Corps, cold, precise, unshaken on the surface. The kind of strategist built for collapse scenarios. Not because he prevents them, but because he understands how they unfold. And right now, he can see it forming from the inside. Reports begin to surface. Not dramatic, not catastrophic, subtle, but dangerous. Pilots requesting mission delays. Just a few seconds more verification before launch. Flight paths being rechecked. Twice, sometimes 3 times. Operators questioning signal clarity that would have been accepted without hesitation days ago. Nothing broken, but nothing fully trusted. 2. AEGIS-NET still functions, still tracks, still calculates faster than any human system ever could, but something intangible has entered the loop. A hesitation that doesn't belong in machines, but exists because humans rely on them. Because every output now carries a silent question. Is this accurate, or is this part of the distortion? And once that question exists, it doesn't stay isolated. It spreads. From system to operator. From operator to pilot. From pilot to command. 2. Within command channels, fractures begin to form. Not open conflict. Not yet. But differences in interpretation. Differences in response timing. Differences in risk tolerance. Some demand escalation, prove dominance, crush the uncertainty. Others urge restraint, contain the situation before it spirals beyond control. Both sides believe they are right, and that's the problem. Because for the first time, there is no single unified confidence guiding decisions, only competing versions of what reality might be. 2. General Corps watches it all with quiet intensity. He doesn't react emotionally, he doesn't panic. Because he understands something most don't. Systems don't collapse when they stop working. They collapse when the people inside them stop trusting them. And that moment is approaching. 2. The truth is still intact. Air dominance hasn't disappeared. The power is still there. The capability still exists. Nothing has been decisively taken. But belief. Belief has shifted. And belief is what turns capability into control. Without it, even the strongest position begins to feel exposed, uncertain, vulnerable. Because in war, you don't lose everything at once. You lose it in layers. First certainty, then confidence, then coordination. And by the time the final layer breaks, it's already too late. 2. And now, standing at the edge of that unraveling, Aurelian Command faces a reality it was never designed to handle. The sky is still theirs, but they no longer feel like it is. 2. And that is how collapse begins. Commander Armin Vec stands in a room filled with certainty and feels none of it. Screens surround him, alive with motion. Targets tracked, signals confirmed. Systems reporting full operational strength. On paper, nothing is lost, but beneath the data, something is slipping. 2. This is the edge, not of defeat, but of decision. And decisions at this level don't just shape battles. They shape realities. 2 paths unfold in front of him. Clear opposite. Irreversible. Strike back. Unleash full aerial dominance. Overwhelm the sky with precision, speed, and force so absolute that no narrative can survive it. Flood the battlefield with undeniable proof. Visible, measurable, impossible to distort. Reclaim control not just physically, but psychologically. Force the world to see power again. 2. Or contain, hold the line, stabilize perception before it fractures beyond repair. Avoid escalation that could spiral into something uncontrollable, something no system, no matter how advanced, can predict or contain. Preserve structure. Preserve balance, even if it means accepting uncertainty for a little longer. 2. Both choices carry risk. One risks war. The other risks losing control without a fight. Kiers, and somewhere beyond this moment, General Kale Draven is already ahead. Because he was never aiming for this room, never aiming for these aircraft, never aiming for territory. He was aiming for this exact hesitation. 2. He didn't need to destroy AEGIS-NET. He didn't need to take the sky. He only needed to introduce something into the system that doesn't belong there. Yeah. And now it's everywhere. Every radar signal is no longer just data. It's a question. Every confirmed track carries uncertainty beneath it. Every mission briefing feels slightly incomplete. 2. Pilots don't say it out loud. They don't need to. It shows in the way they pause for a fraction longer before takeoff, in the way their eyes stay on the display just a second too long, in the way instinct, once sharp and automatic, now competes with hesitation. And that hesitation is lethal. Not immediately, not visibly, but gradually, systematically. Because in modern warfare, speed is survival, precision is dominance, and time is the one thing you cannot afford to lose. Half a second, that's all it takes. For a missile to adjust its path, for a drone to close distance, for a decision to arrive too late. And now, every action inside the system carries that delay, small, almost invisible, but spreading. Commander Vex knows what this means. He doesn't say it. He doesn't need confirmation. He can feel it. This is no longer a battle for the sky. It's a battle for us control over belief. And the most dangerous part is that the enemy doesn't need to fire another shot, because the system is already reacting to something it cannot fully trust. The choice remains in front of him. Escalate, and risk igniting everything, or contain, and fight an enemy that is no longer visible. But one truth is already clear. No matter what he chooses next, the war has already changed. The noise fades first, not all at once, but in fragments. One less signal on the radar, one less drone in the swarm, one less alert demanding attention, until slowly the sky returns to silence. No explosions, no visible damage, no burning wreckage falling through the clouds. From a distance, it looks like nothing happened, like control was never challenged, like dominance still holds. But inside the system, everything feels different. Pilots don't say it. Command doesn't admit it. Reports don't reflect it. But it's there, subtle, permanent. Every mission now carries a question that never existed before. Every radar lock feels just a little less certain. Every decision, no matter how small, passes through a layer of doubt before it becomes action. Because something invisible has changed. Not the machines, not the weapons. The belief that the sky is controlled. The belief that dominance is absolute. The belief that some powers cannot be touched. Gone, not destroyed, but weakened. And once belief weakens, it never returns in the same form. That is the real aftermath of this war. No territory gained, no clear victory declared, but a shift, a fracture in something far deeper than strategy. It's confidence itself, docks. Because modern war no longer begins when missiles launch. And it doesn't end when the sky goes quiet. It begins the moment certainty is questioned. And it ends only when belief is restored. Uverji moral Iran Redlunan Shi war is no longer about destroying power. It's about making powers look fragile. You don't need to win the sky. You only need to make the world believe it's no longer yours. And once doubt enters the system, it doesn't explode. It spreads, quietly, relentlessly, until even the strongest empire begins to fracture from within. The world thinks air dominance is built on firepower, on jets, on missiles, on machines that rule the sky. But the truth is far more dangerous. It collapses the moment your enemy stops believing they can't touch you. And once that belief is gone, the sky doesn't belong to anyone anymore.